What are we doing what we're doing in service to? Is it just in service to staying on the hamster wheel because we don't even know what it would look or feel like to get off?
Yeah, that's all
And
facts.
the thing I've noticed for myself is when I give myself that space to get uncomfortable and be off the hamster wheel and power down the electronics and all of that, and I have that time that we were just talking about to integrate, my creativity comes back. That's that's the biggest gift that's on the other side of that. And when we're consuming all of the time all of this information and this input, how would we ever have the time to get in touch with what wants to flow through us and what our output is going to be?
Yeah, that's so facts too, because what's flowing through you isn't even what is you. Hey guys, today on the show we are joined with the wonderful Selina Rose. Selina is a very special person to me. She graced my life and really helped me over the pandemic with meditation sessions and just kind of reminding me that everything's gonna be okay. On top of all that, Selina is an author, a life coach, master of meditation, nutritionist, and more. It's hard to list all the wonderful things she does. And to sum it up, I'm now referring her as my guru and good friend. In this episode, we dive deep into themes of personal growth, self-care, the layers of hidden philosophy within Winnie the Pooh, and even do a quick meditation session at the end, and much more. Take a deep breath, open your third eye, whatever you need to do, and enjoy this episode. Here's Selina Rose coming at you right now. Selina, nice to see you.
You too. Hi.
It's been a while.
It's been. How are you?
Oh, really good. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm having a good Friday so far.
Ah, very, very nice. Yeah, it's cool to have you back on here after I think it's a few years, probably like 3 years or so.
I think so.
Yeah, and I'm excited to share this convo now because more people actually listen to this show. And you're one of probably one of the most special ones I've had on this legacy of doing whatever this weird podcast journey is. So yeah, it's nice to maybe reintroduce you to some new people. And because I mentioned in a little intro I made for this that you actually helped me a lot over the pandemic. With your weekly meetings, you were doing these free meditation sessions, which I thought was just such a nice and beautiful giving thing to do with your expertise on mind and body, and especially in a time like that where there was so much uncertainty in the world too. We didn't really know what COVID was. We're just kind of nervous, laughing around, oh, I think we're gonna be okay. And at the beginning they said it's going to be 2 weeks, and then it turned into a year. And yeah, it was such a nice sessions to just, I don't know, breathe and just
Reconnect and calm our nervous systems. That to me is the big thing that we need to do, especially in these times, but we don't really know how to do that. Where are we taught that skill set? So to me, to be able to help people with that, even just for half an hour once a week, was important.
Yeah, and it was awesome too. And obviously you have years of practice, from whether it's just studying your yoga classes, even being able to guide people and calm them down. And I used to always make the joke every week, it's I forgot how to properly breathe. And then I go into these sessions, it's I don't notice I'm always running around, especially when my mind is busy. It's I'm taking short breaths all day, and then you would do these sessions and I take a huge deep breath to my capacity, and it's almost I get lightheaded in a good way, like a high, feeling good. And just simple things like that are so important, and amazing reminders and everything.
Totally. Yeah, because we walk around in our stress response, right? So we are chest breathing. I had that experience just the other day where I got into my meditation and I was like, oh, I am not breathing properly right now. And then I noticed all of the tension and was like, okay, I can relax and expand.
Yeah, and that's also interesting to hear from you too, because from like the sessions too, you're such a leader at this stuff. You're always got a smile on your face, even the way you put out stuff on social media too. It's very you're very heavy like teaching, and it's almost like I look at it, I'm like, oh, Selina's just this entity of just calmness and peace. But it's also interesting because I know like everybody tries to put their best self out on social media, but to hear that, just like the other day, you had a moment where yourself was just like, "Oh shit, I'm not breathing now." It's like,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
we teach what we most need to learn. Like I'm no different needing to come back to the practices. I think that's why I've made nutrition and holistic health and meditation and mindfulness and yoga. I think that's why I've made them such a big part of my career and part of my life, is because I realize how much I need these practices. And you don't always need them if you're on the straight and narrow. It's when you're human, which we all are, and we walk the zigzagging path, that's when we need them.
yeah, that's facts too. And I was in a conversation with somebody the other day, like another content creator, and I caught myself giving them advice that I should be taking myself. It's just like having a moment where it's like, oh, you should do this, like kind of seeing what they're doing in the third person, and it totally makes sense. And then I was thinking, I'm like, why don't I practice that? So that's interesting that you say that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I have moments of that when I'm talking with my clients where I'll say something that I really needed to hear, and
Yeah.
then I'll hear myself say it and I'll be like, "Oh, I think I needed that too."
Oh, that's a beautiful thing too. So it's
Mhm.
like even in a way that you're helping people too, you're always growing yourself, and that's awesome. Do you feel like I might have asked you this in our first episode years ago too, but I'm going to repeat the question just because there's so many new people who listen to this show. But do you feel like maybe at the beginning of your learning things was you were just kind of more focused on just yourself? And did you ever think like at that time I want to be a teacher, or was it just intaking stuff to deal with maybe your own things you needed to work on at the beginning? Or
Mm, I think in the early stages, it started out because I had health challenges that I needed to work through. And so I started to build the toolkit. But even prior to that, I had this desire in me to teach. And call it my first career was in advertising. I was a copywriter. And
cool.
so I was teaching. That's a form of teaching. It's maths education in a way. And so I appreciated that aspect of it. And so then once I started to learn these tools and they started to have such a big impact on me and really start to change my life and my health, it just became clear. It was, oh, I'm going to teach this now.
Oh yeah, that's
Mhm.
awesome too. And you're so good at it too. Even as I think of like those weekly meditations too, every week, you made each one so unique and special in a
Mhm.
way. Like it's like I remember you'd always like put out like a certain intention, and then so even like beyond like all your knowledge and stuff, you got such a knack that is almost like a public speaker in a way too. And did that come like naturally at the beginning, or did you find like it took time through like maybe doing yoga sessions and more stuff like that and everything?
I think I had to develop my voice. I was always a strong communicator. That's just part of who I am. So when I think back to presentations and things like that in elementary school or even in high school, I always excelled in that area. So there was some natural strength there. And it's something that I've always enjoyed. Um, but when it came to doing it as part of my career or leading groups as part of my career, it took me a bit to find my voice. But then once I started to have more conviction, and that happens through personal experience, and it happens through client experience. It's really when you go from knowledge to wisdom, and that's through experience. And so it was that transition as I grew as a person and grew in my work and my practice, I started to really see that the recommendations or suggestions that I would make to people, when they'd follow them, it would work, and I would see the massive transformation. And so it allowed me to put so much more behind everything that I'm sharing, and to I guess have more of that leadership posture in what I do. It's not always
Yeah.
the case, right? Like, people who meet me on the street might not get that impression of me, but I'm also not trying to, help them better their lives necessarily.
Yeah, yeah.
So it kind of ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, makes sense too. It's like because I do always see you in the light where you're just always like teaching and stuff like that, and I have this imagination of you walking down the street and just having that same glowing smile. But again, like you mentioned, we're all human. You have a day, like maybe you got like a billion errands you got to run to, and just yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, like the other week too, me and a friend were like kind of like talking about like online perception too, and how you put yourself out there. And I believe you, like somebody like you and myself too, you always like conscious of putting your best self out there,
Mhm.
and I don't know, I feel like that's very important, especially like in times like these too. I find like a lot of people are just um I'm trying to think of the word. The word isn't like weakened, but like just kind of like exhausted over the year and stuff like that. And I notice once in a while I'll make like just like a little silly joke on a rainy day too, and it's interesting. I'll think nothing of it, and then I'll start getting like little messages. It's like, yo, I needed to hear that. It's like it's
Yeah.
interesting. And sometimes like I'll see your posts and maybe I don't even message you every time, but I get those moments like in epiphanies, like, yo, I need to hear that. Like you're right on, Selena, and just I don't know, check me in a way.
Yeah, I think with social media, there is such a plethora of accounts and so many ways that we can show up. And I'll admit, for me, it's been an area in my business and in my life where I've felt a lot of friction over the years, and just been like, I don't know if I like this, moments of, I don't know if I want to be on social media.
Yeah.
And then what I came back to, and what I try to live and to put forward, is I try to be that voice of um, inspiration, if you will, or stillness or calm, or some kind of reminder that, if somebody is mindlessly scrolling through their feed, or they're going through their stories on Instagram, that something might slip in that maybe they need to hear, that's going to make them think more positively, or think differently, or feel better about themselves. That's something that I'm very conscious of, because there's so much comparison that happens when we're engaging and taking in social media, that I just try to think of it as an opportunity to be the light, and be that for that person, that opportunity for them to feel better about themselves, or to realize something, or, and there's different degrees of that. And sometimes I do it through humor, and sometimes it's, a little more sentimental, if you will. But yeah, looking at it as an opportunity to say something that might be meaningful to somebody.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people connect to your post too, because there's a million people who like they post online and like their goal is to be like, I don't know what the word. It's like, I want to be an influencer, and they don't have the experience. They're just reading quotes or whatever. But
Mhm.
there's something always so authentic of what you put out. It's just like it feels like very just caring, the vibe of everything. And even from those meditation sessions and stuff too. Like I wish I got more people into that. I remember you always like telling me to invite people, and I would, and people would say they'd show up, but I find like a lot of people, like maybe sometimes they get intimidated in
Mhm.
trying to I don't know, whether just stop and dig deep into their mind and their hearts and stuff like that. And so
Mhm.
maybe like on paper, they're like, oh, this is a good idea. And then the day comes, I get ghosted in a way, which is
Yeah.
also kind of understandable too. I feel like with routines and practices, like the first step for me personally, it always seems the hardest, the first step. And then once you got that momentum, it can turn into something that becomes a part of your life, whether it's like working out or meditation and just other practices and stuff. Do you feel like similar as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like for a lot of us, it's the unknown. Whenever you're going from the known quantity to the
Yeah.
unknown quantity, that's where fear can come in because your mind just fills in the blanks with any number of things that could scare you off or dissuade you. So yeah, that first step is massive. It's that is the momentum builder, really. I see that a ton with my clients is like they know that they want their health goals. They know that they want them, but then they'll sort of regress right before they make the commitment because they're like, okay, but then I'm going to need to change. I'm going to need to let go of all of these things. And that's when often we need that helping hand or that coaching support or somebody to say, like, you don't have to stop being you in
Hmm.
order to like meditation or to embrace some quiet time or to change up your diet. It doesn't mean that you're never going to be able to do all of the things you love or that all of a sudden you're going to become this person that you don't recognize. And I
Yeah.
think that's the fear a lot of the time, even for a guy like you to be showing up to meditation sessions weekly is like, people might not expect that from you. And maybe there was a little part of you initially that was like, is this really a Sean thing? Like, is Sean the kind of guy that does this?
Yeah, facts,
Um,
facts.
but then like leaning into it and being like, I can expand the definition of Sean and he can do this if he wants to, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I also one thing I loved about it too was like it was almost like I was hanging out with a crowd that I don't usually hang out with. In a way, it's just like we got you, my guru. I'm gonna start calling you my guru. I hope you don't mind. My guru's Selina Rose guiding it. But then it was more like I'm hanging in a group weekly with some women who were like in their middle age and stuff like that, like much older than me. And I did have these thoughts. I'm like, oh, this is different, but I felt so much benefit from it. Like I just kept coming back and almost like addicted to how I felt. Like especially do it on the Monday at the beginning of the week and just to have a clear head. And I want to let you know like two things happened. So since we stopped doing that and then me getting a full-time gig, I have totally fell off the rails of meditation, Selena.
Okay.
And what's very interesting is when we were texting, like setting up this interview or whatever, it's just like I don't know whether it was like your energy or whatever. It reminded me of like those times of meditation, and I just started meditating again, but like 3 days ago. Like, like I'm just like, oh yeah, like we used to do this thing, and it's just like talking to you, like kind of gave me a reminder of that good feeling I had in the summer before I started working this full-time gig. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like I was thinking about it as I was meditating the other day. It's almost like when I get too busy, like I start getting like mentally exhausted. And
Yeah.
that's probably the time I want to like sit down and meditate, or like I need to sit down and meditate. But instead, it's just like after like a long day, I'll go all in a bad habit where I'll crack a beer, like turn on a video game and stuff. It's like I deserve a treat or a reward type of thing. I don't know what it is, but yeah, that's been the journey.
Yeah, you just touched on something that's so important. And this is something that I've seen the contrast on become so sharp and so clear over the pandemic is we we push in our days, and that looks different for everybody, whether that's a busy work week, or you're a mom running after kids, or you're leading a team, or you're organizing things. We all have our areas where we push and we get challenged and we get maxed out. um, and then there comes this time, either in the day or in the week or in the project cycle, where you start to feel a little run down. And I find one of two things will happen at that point. Either we go, I need to push harder in order to get this next bit done. There's some sort of carrot or some sort of destination that we're chasing. And so we think, I need to push harder in order to go there. Or we will do what you just said and say, like, I'm starting to get a bit fried and I don't like the way that this feels. So I'm going to do something to dissociate from that feeling,
Mm,
whether that's alcohol or smoking weed or watching television or eating a bag of chips mindlessly. Is we have those two options. And then there's also a third option, which a lot of us don't think about. And that third option is to slow down,
yeah.
to actually recognize that critical point that we've come to, where we're in sort of this decision making phase of like, okay, I've woken up from my busy day, or I've woken up from my busy week, and I recognize that I've been pushing and I've been going hard, and that something needs to change. I'm at some sort of precipice, and we're looking at our options and we don't think about slowing down. And that is what we really need to do in those
Yeah.
moments. Like that is the sign. Like that's what our bodies are trying to tell us in those moments, but we just interpret it as all of these other weird things, or our other crutches or patterns or habits come in those moments, and then we're just off onto the next thing. But if we can train ourselves to recognize that that's the moment where you need to sit down, where you need to come back to your breath, where you need to close your eyes, any version of that, get out in nature, take space, be away from a screen, something.
Yeah.
That's what we really need to do in those moments.
Yeah, facts too. And yeah, you mentioned being away from a screen as well. Even when I checked myself a few days ago where I needed to meditate, like I was getting in a pattern where I would just fall asleep to like things on the TV, or like just have like my phone propped up, like watching like some shit on YouTube and whatnot. And I had a moment where I was doing that, and I was just like kind of fading in and out, and it was, oh, I was almost like I was overthinking things, but I didn't know what the issue was, and I was feeling antsy. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, let's turn off my phone watching this YouTube video. And then I just sat there in the dark and was just like kind of going back to breathing. And it was interesting, like it's started like once I calmed my body, it felt like my mind was like piecing some puzzles of the unknown. Like I felt like my brain was a scattered jigsaw puzzle, and then it just started in a way coming together, and things were making sense of, oh, why do you feel anxious? It's like, oh, because of this and this and this. And it turned in like, to some people I'm sure that sounds like terrifying to just like face every single little problem or whatever, but it was almost like so healing. And I just like sat there for 40 minutes in like the dark, and just almost like all these questions of things that were bothering me, which were unknown, became like it almost turned into knowledge. And I
Yeah.
remember just waking up the next day like feeling amazing, like, oh, I can tackle this and that and that, and just like with like a calm presence. So it's
Yeah.
interesting too.
How amazing is that our minds do that on their own if we just allow it to happen?
Yeah, it's almost like a power of stillness in a way.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely. The analogy that's coming to my mind is I have a Mac laptop, and these things will run. Like I've had my computer for 7 years, and there have been so many times where I would go months without restarting it or shutting it down.
Yeah.
There's just like tabs open from, weeks and weeks
And it's like
before.
moving really slow, and you're like, why is it so slow?
Yeah, it's like, oh, maybe it needs to restart or something. Our bodies, our brains, our nervous system is like that too. And we
Yeah.
just like full steam ahead, and all of the stimulation, all of the screens. It's, if we're not watching something on our phone, we're listening to something, or we're talking to somebody, like we've got ourselves plugged in all the time. There's always this stimulation happening. It's the same thing as our computer. Like sometimes you just need to shut down, and then your brain will recalibrate everything in that stillness time, and then you'll come back the next day and you'll be this like totally refreshed version of you.
Yeah, and it's facts. We put it off too, and with the Mac, every time there's an update, it goes in the corner. It's like you have an update, and then you just keep clicking. Oh, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you've been doing that for like 3 months, and then you're like, I need the computer now. If I shut it down, it's gonna be like a half hour, 45 minutes for it to update. But yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to do it, even though like almost like take a step back to step forward in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I call it slowing down to speed up. That's
Yeah.
that's exactly what you need to do. And we have that resistance to it. And I think that that's normal for a lot of us, is because we're so used to relying on external stimulation that it's that's like our safety blanket. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden when we let that go, it's like, okay, but what am I doing? and
Yeah.
and that taps us into a whole other can of worms, because we're programmed in the way that society is. We celebrate and we put so much value on doing. Like, what
Mm.
are you doing? How was your day productive? What did you produce today? How efficient were you? All of these different ways that we measure our productivity, but we don't actually look at the power of our presence, or how we're showing up in our days. And so we create this resistance to just being, because in the back of our mind, with all this programming going on, we're thinking, well, I can't just be, because then I'm useless, or then
Yeah.
I'm not, powerful, or I'm not being productive. And I think that's something that we all need to question for ourselves, is like, um, what are we doing, what we're doing in service to? Like, is it just in service to staying on the hamster wheel because we don't even know what it would look or feel like to get off?
Yeah, that's all
And
facts.
the thing I've noticed for myself is when I give myself that space to get uncomfortable and be off the hamster wheel, and power down the electronics and all of that, and I have that time that we were just talking about to integrate, my creativity comes back.
Mm.
That's that's the biggest gift that's on the other side of that. And when we're consuming all of the time all of this information and this input, how would we ever have the time to get in touch with what wants to flow through us and what our output is going to be?
Yeah, that's so facts too, because like what's flowing through you isn't even what is you. It's
Mhm.
like almost like North American culture. It's so like we're getting so bombarded with ads and screens, and like you mentioned, it's almost like taboo to slow down too. It's like hustle culture. And what's very interesting, 2 years ago on the show, I had a real Shaolin monk on. His name was Yuan, and he's actually living at the Buddhist temple in Toronto or whatnot. But I was talking to him a little bit about like the different cultures, and he said where he's from, it's almost like an opposite, and it's weird in North America. to see all this stuff, because his life has been so focused on looking inward and everything. And I asked him, it's like, oh, why don't you like live back there or whatever, if you kind of seem like you more fit in. And he's like, oh, it's cool here because I feel like people need these teachings. So he has like classes like you, instead of yoga, he like teaches all like kind of like the Shaolin like kung fu moves, but it's also got like a meditation like sense to it too. It's really awesome. But yeah, I feel like you two are just like gems on my timeline as I'm scrolling. It's just like there's so much garbage, and then all of a sudden it's like you guys, like, once again, I'll always use the breathe analogy. It's like just such a breath and reminders, which I appreciate so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's got to be that voice, voice of calm within the storm.
Yeah, and also like beyond like you always like teaching about like the mind and stuff, you're really like into like just physical health as well. And I got your book right here.
Yeah.
For people who are watching it on the YouTube, it's Selina Rose Every Day Eats. The title's mirrored because I'm on the Zoom, but
Yeah.
yeah, this
Uncomplicated recipes for time-starved healthy eaters.
yeah, and it's wicked. It's just like big font, big pictures, everything. I love this book so much. I mostly dove into like the breakfast menu, and
Yeah.
I keep wanting to make like the dips and stuff, but I always go grocery shopping after I'm done like work or whatever. And I have this cycle where I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to write down what I need. And that's been going on for like a year of like after buying your book, whether it was like in the fall or something. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just great, and it just totally like complements like your vibe. And yeah, it's just all like recipes that just make you feel great as well.
Yeah, I feel like people, when they want to improve their health or want to improve an aspect of their lives, health is part of it, right? Health is the foundation for everything that we do. If we're not feeling good, we're not going to be able to show up for the things that we want to do in the way that we want to. Um, so I feel like it's the gateway to all of this other stuff, you know. So some people come into my work because they're busy and they're overrun and they're like, I want to feel better in my body, or I want to lose weight, or I need to have more energy, and so you can help me with nutrition, right? And I'm like, yeah, we'll start there. And
Yeah.
it's like we'll crack that door open, and then once you start to have more energy and your system is cleaner, I feel like it's an automatic evolution for people to start paying more attention to the voices inside their head, and like, are you being kind to yourself? Are you
Mm.
putting yourself down? Are you creating more friction and more challenges than need to be there? You know, are you slowing down? Because that's the thing, is you can eat great and you can have a lot of energy, but if you don't know how to shut it down at the end of the day, then that's going to become its own challenge for you.
Yeah,
So I feel
yeah.
like they go so hand in hand.
Yeah, that's got to be so rewarding to see people's evolution too. Like you mentioned, maybe they come in, they're just like, oh, I need to eat healthier, and then like as it goes on, they're kind of see them bring up questions of like, oh, how can I make other parts of myself just healthier? And that just totally relates to the mind. And what's wonderful about you too, Selina, too, is like you can guide them as well. It's just like it's almost like the nutrition is the gateway drug to enlightenment in a way.
It's there if you want to go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome, that's awesome. And
Mhm.
is there any like go-to like maybe like who is Selina's guru? I know you're big on Winnie the Pooh, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And do you got any other ones?
Mm. Have this guy on my desk.
Ah, right on. There he is. There he is.
um, One of the reasons, just to give some background on why I love Winnie the Pooh, is the whole philosophy and the mindset about him and his character and his stories. Is really, he represents the beginner's mind. is like approaching things as though you're doing them for the very first time. And so that gives you this number one sense of presence, because you can't be living in the past or in the future and be experiencing something new for the first time. So right away your senses are fired up and you're in the present moment. And then it's about having that sense of awe and that sense of wonder with everything, because you're doing it for the first time. And so it's like allowing yourself to take that in. And when you're present like that and you're present with what you're taking in, you have such a deeper experience of yourself, and you're able to witness how you're showing up to whatever the thing is and the thoughts that are going through your head. And we talked about how when you can slow down and when you're present, it gets you present to your creativity. And that's then how you share what's inside of you with the rest of the world. And so I think that in terms of a role model, I'm hard pressed to find a better reminder than Winnie the Pooh. But there's a lot. I have a lot of teachers, I have coaches, I have mentors, and people that I look up to in so many different aspects of my life. I'm a lifelong learner and somebody who always just wants to take in new knowledge and experience something new. And I get genuinely excited about doing new things, whether they're big or small. So I have so many mentors and people who teach me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing too. And even yeah, for some people, like I don't think they really understand like how deep like philosophy wise like Winnie the Pooh actually is. There's a book too called the Tao of Pooh, but Tao is
Yeah.
spelled Taoi, or is like Taoism
CAO.
type thing. Yeah, yeah. Pronounced like a D, but it's a T. And once in a while I'll throw on like the audio book when I'm just like laying down, and I always like just listen to the first couple chapters and I like pass out because it's just like so relaxing or whatever. But it's just like such a
Yeah.
beautiful like metaphor of like you mentioned, like living in the present moment and stuff like that. And actually I got heavily into that audio book right before that Christopher Robin movie came out, and I ended up like
Okay.
taking my niece to that movie, and she liked it, but
Mhm.
I think I enjoyed it more than her. I'm like, oh, this is a good kids
Yeah.
movie, and at the end there's like a tear coming out of my eye. It's just like, I don't know, like I just started feeling like a connection. The way like Christopher Robin like kind of like has an epiphany, and he metaphorically, I guess, like tells his boss to go F himself, and like I was like, yeah, it's like there's more important
Yeah.
things to life than like kind of the stress you build within your mind,
Absolutely. And that is not all just about being one dimensional, focused on work and productivity. I feel like that's the theme of that movie, is the theme of our conversation. And,
Mhm.
what could be such a big theme in our North American lives right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like these type of conversations really resonate with people, but kind of the way everything, or the majority of things, not everything, the majority of things in North America are structured, like workplaces and stuff, it goes against that in a way. Like it's not
Mhm.
living in the present moment. It's like we got to hustle for tomorrow, and like these numbers are down. It's all like stats and graphs, and like even right now I feel like I fall into that kind of thing too, because I'm producing content and a lot of it's like goes off of different analytics too. And almost like I like, again, like as I'm meditating like 3 days ago, I'm like, I need to figure out a little more ways to shut off my brain and not think about it when I'm not on the clock, type of thing. Like it's tough because you got to do what you got to do to pay your bills, and sometimes you have to go with the flow and do things that suck and maybe doesn't benefit you. But I don't know, you got to make it
Mhm.
work for yourself. And one thing I admire about you, Selena, too, is like you you made a career out of like this, like just your health and benefiting other people. And like, I don't know, I respect that so much.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, it was one way for me to teach what I need to learn and to just continue to be in the practice of that. I had a really clear point in my mid 20s, I would say, when I got really clear on the fact that I wanted my work to be an extension of who I am. Like I was
Mm.
never going to be that person who goes to work 40 hours a week and does something that is, possibly irrelevant to the rest of my life or my interests. Like I wanted it to just be seamless and to, not have it feel like I'm working. And I think that's one of the things that I love the most, is because I get to talk with people and have conversations about things that I'm genuinely interested in. Like I read about this stuff, I journal about this, I'm in my own exploration, I'm trying new things all of the time and always trying to be at that leading edge of my own growth. And so it makes it so relevant to be able to talk to people and help them to push the edges of their growth as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's really cool to hear. And I kind of got like a similar feeling right now. And I feel like I'm making the transition. And just the other day I was talking to a musician friend who was on that wavelength as well. And as I was saying, it's just like, again, it all leads back to the meditation 3 days ago. I literally had an epiphany. But after I was done, and that was another thing going through my mind and heart. This sounds corny, but all I did was put on a note. That remember who you are, because
Mhm.
sometimes I fall into other people's energies, and I'm
Mhm.
like such like an empath to other people's energy. Sometimes it'll sway me away from things that are just like, it seems like I'm going with the flow, but really it's not beneficial to me or whatever. And as I mentioned that to my friend, she's like, oh, that's not corny at all. She's like, I got one that says stay the path. And we're both like, yeah. And actually every time I finish these episodes on the Spotify version, I end with a song. So I'm going to put one of her songs at the end of this talk today,
Oh,
just to go with the theme. But yeah, do you ever like yourself, like kind of make little reminders to yourself or stuff like that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you can see my phone screen, there's
Yeah.
reminders that I set them in my reminder app and they pop up every day. My favorite one right now is, it says, life is continuously exceeding my expectations.
Mm,
And so it
that's
keeps
deep.
me in that mind frame of like, this can only get better. and
Oh,
and it is. So watch out for it. Like pick out the things that are better than you expected today.
yeah, that's awesome too. And I feel like kind of being in that mindset always, I don't know, it's almost like pushes you to evolve, you know? I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes I don't know, I've seen this with other people and even me in the past, where if my head is so stifled with negative things, it's just like, oh, you can't do this, like you'll never be good at this type of thing. It actually like puts a ceiling on whatever your life experience is in a way, and just kind of like you try to do something, like say you're trying to get better at an instrument, it's just like, oh, I'll never be able to learn that solo or all these scales or whatever. And then it's just like that wave of thinking, like you'll bonk your head on the ceiling and stop. But when you're just
Yeah.
like almost like, it's almost like thinking like through it, like when you're in driving
Yeah.
school, it's like they tell you to look to the horizon. It's like and
Yeah.
it's just like beneficial. You can see the road, you can see where you need to, you be prepared to how to make the next step and everything.
Yeah, that reminds me of last weekend. I had my first day out at the driving range. I'm very early stages starting to get into golf.
Cool.
And I was out with one of my friends and he was coaching me and he's like, okay, arms are straight and you're bending your knees and you have to lean forward and like you're this far from the ball. And he filled my head with all of these things. And then I was like, striking out, like I was missing the ball
Yeah,
continuously.
it's like
And
too much thoughts, robotic, like stiffness and
yeah.
yeah.
And then he just interrupted me. He's like, okay, just forget everything that I told you and just do it. And that's when it started working. It was like, okay, I need to know that, but like in the back of my mind, and just let that sink down. And then just be in the moment and be in the feel of it.
Yeah. I imagined you like the movie Happy Gilmore, where he's like Adam Sandler, he's like a hockey player, but then he goes to golf and he's taking like full like hockey swings at the thing, but it still works, you know. It's just because he's all loose, and that's how he knows how to do it. Like he doesn't know the form and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that you're doing the golf thing too. And I can tell about your personality too. Is you're always like trying to grow and just like you said, you're earlier, you're something like you're a student for life in a way. And I think that's like
Mhm.
such a powerful mindset. It's like an egoless approach at life, you know. There's some people like maybe they'll get a degree in something, or maybe they get like some award and they're just like, oh, I'm a master at this, and just they stifle themselves and they're not learning more. And then the
Yeah.
people who are just kind of loose and going with the flow, like they in a way like surpass them in a way. Like again, it goes to that putting a ceiling on whatever you're trying to do.
Totally. I feel like the scariest thing is thinking that you know all that there is to know. Like that to me is just, it's not my personality, first of all, because I always like the idea that there's more to learn or more to discover. But I've had so many experiences over the years where I've had to check myself, because it's like I might be really set on thinking that this is the way it is. And then I'll have an experience that's very contrary to that. And I'll think, wow, how limiting was my mindset, that I thought, it was always going to be this one way and that was all there is. And so I call it leaving room for mystery.
Mm,
It's like I leave room is like, this is as much as I know, or this is what I understand. And then we'll leave room for mystery, because, in a year from now, I might learn something that expands on that. And so it's this dance, right? And learning to
yeah.
be confident in what you do know, but also not get too wrapped up in the fact that might change or you might be wrong. And, that's okay too, because we're all human and we're all learning.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like every time I get set in a way, like unconsciously, the universe almost like changes that by just humbling me. Just like, no, Sean, like whether it's like failing at something or just having like this epiphany is just like, oh no, that's not the way. It's like you mentioned, just like the dance, you got to go with the flow. And like the Bruce Lee quote that I've quoted on the show like 7 million times, be water, where he's like, you put water in a pot, it becomes the pot. You put it in the cup, it becomes the cup, type of thing. Yeah, yeah. Well, this is what I love about this conversation today too. Is like I wrote down like a bunch of questions, and we totally went in another like direction. But I feel very like present. You know, it's very like thematic to what we're talking about. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is almost like reminding me of doing the meditations with you a year ago.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like you don't know what you're showing up to, but if you show up fully, then you're going to be there for whatever it is.
Yeah. And
Mm.
also, yeah, for people listening at home, I want you guys to do something. Just, I'm gonna do this right now, but take a deep breath through your mouth, fill up your lungs as much as you can. Let's do this 3 times, and exhale out of your nose. Okay, I'm gonna go right now.
The other way
Other
around.
way around. Okay, thanks, Selena. This is why we have Selena here. It's been a year. I haven't I haven't been breathing properly in like a year because Selena
Yeah.
hasn't been around. But okay, we're gonna go through the nose.
Can I say something?
Yes,
Do you want me to
yes.
do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
listen, yeah, let's get an expert, not like some guy just thinking he knows
Oh,
okay. Do you want
okay.
to do a
So
little thing?
if you're pardon, yeah, I'd love that.
Oh,
So if
sick.
you're in a place where you can sit down, I'd recommend sitting. If you can only stand, then just make sure both of your feet are flat on the floor. And we'll sit up nice and straight. So get your spine tall.
People were watching on the YouTube. I was getting my Larry King lean in. I don't know. I think that happens to people who do interviews. It's like you get engulfed in the words.
You're like, you want to get closer.
I'm gonna turn into like this old question mark in like 5 years. All right. Sorry to
Okay,
derail you there. Okay.
so we're sitting up straight.
Yeah.
Let's take one hand to low belly, one hand to chest, and just shake out your shoulders and let those relax. Notice if there's any tension there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to close our eyes. That's a big key to stop your senses from interfering in your experience and to bring that experience inside your body. And now we'll come to focusing on the breath. And so, first, without changing your breath, just notice how it's flowing in and out. And notice where your breath is coming from in your body. Is it coming from your chest? Can you get it to come from deeper in your body? And so let's consciously deepen the breath, sending your inhale into your low belly. And then fully exhaling through your nose, letting it all go. And we'll try another one of those, sending your inhale into your low belly. Feel your rib cage broaden and expand as you breathe in. And exhale, release. Now we're going to do what is called a falling out breath. And this is really great for releasing tension. And it's something that's super quick that you can do pretty much anytime, anywhere. So we're going to go for a deep inhale through the nose. And then we're going to exhale out your mouth and maybe add a little sigh. And finding a deep breath in, rib cage expanding on the inhale. And then we'll exhale out the mouth, letting it all go. We've got one more of those. Biggest breath of the day so far. Deep inhale through the nose. And let it come out your mouth. Good. Return your breath to normal. Notice the feeling of your hands on your body, your seat on the chair, your feet on the floor. And when you're ready, you can let your hands melt back down into your lap. And allow yourself to slowly open your eyes.
Thank you for that, Selina. That was so nice. I tried to jump into it with like no foreplay at all. You have like such a way to ease in and like just getting to know, like, yeah, you almost like make me feel like I'm learning about my body again with like how you mentioned like thinking about how you're breathing right now before you start taking the deep breaths and everything. Like it's so cool, like how you can just ease into that. It's just like, and then to mention too, as we do these half-hour meditations, Selina would always add more and more layers onto that as well too, and it just feels incredible. And but thanks for that too. That's amazing.
Yeah, you're welcome. If I can just share part of why we pay attention to the breath as it is before we go about making changes is we have this mentality of when we're getting into self-awareness that we need to change or perfect or enhance whatever we discover. And that can be a really difficult mental pattern where every time we're seeing ourselves, we're thinking, oh, I need to be better at that, or I need to change. And so part of what we're doing in that moment of the practice is you're noticing the way that you are, and you're just noticing it. We're not changing. We're not saying it needs to be any different than it is. We're just being the witness in that moment. And there's something that's so powerful about that because it helps you to start to cultivate self-compassion so that when you're out in the world and you see yourself say something or take an action and you're cringing on the inside,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I can just witness that. I can just, see it like I see my breath when I notice that it's all coming from my chest, is like, I'm just going to witness that and hold space for it for a minute before I try to come in and make a change.
Oh, that's so awesome. I think we're almost at an hour now too. I'm gonna leave it on that note, but I want to thank you for this beautiful conversation today. I always love catching up with you, and I always feel better after a talk with you, even if it's just like a couple texts back and forth and everything. And I just want to thank you for being just such a shining entity too. I feel like, as weird as the world has been this past year, it might even get weirder today. Like the Pentagon's releasing like a UFO report, I heard. Whatever. Everybody needs to follow Selina if you're feeling any type of anxiety too. It's always just a reminder or a wink that things are going to be okay, and just breathe, just breathe.
Awesome. I love that. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, no problem. And where can everybody find you, and like maybe even order
Um,
your book as well?
yeah, absolutely. So my website is selinarose.ca. That's Selina. And if you want to find my book, it is on my website, selinarose.ca/book. And then if you want to connect with me on Instagram, it is at selinarose.inc. And I also have a Facebook group. It's called Practice Presence, where we do all of these sorts of things and we practice being present and loving ourselves and nourishing our bodies and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. Definitely join the group, guys, too. It's another reminder, pops up on my feed all the time. Really appreciate it too. And do you still offer like teachings over Zoom once in a while, or do you still do stuff like that?
I put those on pause for
Mhm.
a while as my life sped up a little bit. But I'm looking for a way to integrate that again because they were really special sessions and something that I want to continue to build community around. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's awesome. So everybody follow Selina. And once again, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you, Sean. It was a pleasure.
Thanks once again to Selina for joining us today. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. That conversation personally felt great. And like we mentioned, definitely follow Selina if you want more of those vibes. And actually, speaking of great vibes, right now you're listening to a song from our good pal Sleepy Jean. We actually helped with the video on this one, did a little shooting. It was a great weekend, and she's got a lot of amazing music coming out. Also give Sleepy Jean a follow and get ready, she's got a great EP coming your way. And before we go, like always, gotta thank all the legends on the Patreon. First up, our co-producer, Jeremy Hopkin of Hopkin Design, the Queen Ola Mazuka of Sonic Fold, Ryan Watkins of Ryan Radio, Amanda McKnight of Top 10 Nerd, Pat Maloney, Ryan Campbell, Daniel Sun, Drew Stewart, Devin Staple, Mike Ulio, and Francis Kopfer, aka my mom. I really can't thank you guys enough. This show keeps growing, a lot of cool things happening, and I'm just full of appreciation. And like I mentioned, we're gonna play you out with some Sleepy Jean, and this track is called How's It All Gonna End?